So this is me, standing next to a map that I made of the map that I'm standing in, which I made from a dozen or so other maps. I might have a problem. So I gave a talk at the previous OggCamp about climate science. That's my day job. I work as a computer scientist, enabling ecologists to do climate science. And we make a lot of maps. And I feel we're doing important work. We're trying to understand challenges we face and find solutions to those challenges. And then we make maps like this. And clearly this is like a dove, maybe, or a butterfly coming out of a forest, maybe. I don't know. It's a map of increased probability of species extinction if you turn land into farms in Ethiopia. That's what that is. But it doesn't talk beyond the scientists involved, right? This map tells the scientists what they want to know, but it doesn't engage the broader public, which is, I feel, important, and we should be doing more of because it affects everyone, and we need kind of everyone informed of the kind of difficult choices that are ahead. So I've been working to try and find other ways of communicating the kind of data that we generate. Sorry, I'll try and keep the rest of the talk happy. So this is one of the examples of what I've been trying to work on is kind of 3D printing maps, right? Can I take the data at least out of the computer and give it to people? And maybe then it'll start to be more tangible and impactful. That's not what I'm going to talk about today, but what I am going to talk about is the area that this is a map of. This is Kullberg in the middle of nowhere in central Sweden. And this is what it looks like on a satellite view. Does anyone recognize this? This is where the meese are right now. So it started April 22nd. SVT, the Swedish equivalent of the BBC, for 3 weeks, have high-quality studio cameras in the forest under buckets to keep the rain off in each of those locations. And what's happening is that the moose are migrating north right now, as in spring. And they are here because as they come north, they need to cross this river, and they end up on this peninsula, and at some point, they'll swim, because moose are good swimmers. They don't like doing it, but the alternative is going back, and so that's what we're trying to capture on this. So this is Den Stora Älgvandringen, the Great Moose Migration. So I encourage you to go and watch it. It's on SVT Play something. And there's moose. And that counter, as of this morning when I left, said 32. When I went to bed last night, it said 20. So we had 12 meese swam just after sunrise before I got up this morning. And you can see there's a chat. There's a big online community of mooseaholics like myself. And there's some meese swimming, just to show you that they do this. And so yeah, so as I say, they come north and they kind of will cross the river. Maybe they won't. It's a kind of bit of drama. And I've watched this for like 5-6 years. It's been running 8 years. And I've seen, it's like 3 weeks a year I get to watch this. And so I know it very well. But at the same time, I don't know it at all because I've never been, right? I get to see what the television camera wants to show me. And I have questions, like why do the moose swim in these particular sections and not in other sections? Like what is going on underground? You'll see moose come in at the entrance, and maybe you'll see them cross at either the passage or Nezet, but often they vanish for a while and then turn up in surprise places. What's going on there? Where did they hide? I wanted to know something about this. And so I thought this was a good way to test a new way of communicating kind of geospatial data in a way to make it impactful to other people. So I built it in Minecraft. So this here is the section that's fastland. Which I love Swedish because fastland is mainland. It's fast as in it's stuck. That's so I built this map as a way of trying to make it more real to me, and for the online kind of other viewers. And so what I want to share with you is how I made this map. Because for me, there's nothing magic or kind of particularly special that was involved in doing this. It's just, this is my day job, so I knew what to go for. And what I hope to share with you is the knowledge of how to do that. So if you want to take your local area or something that interests you and do something similar, you'll have some information to get started with. This here is the Swedish kind of open data portal, Swedish government open data portal. They have dozens upon dozens of different data products. I hate that we have put the word product in there, but that's what they're called. Different maps, you see you've got kind of some building maps and stuff, you can wade through there. And everything I'm going to tell you is going to be focused on recreating a small corner of Sweden, but nothing is tied to Sweden. This is, the DEFRA have full LiDAR scans of the UK that are open and downloadable. So you can go and fetch your local area in LiDAR data. A lot of the maps I use for my day job are very similar at a global scale. So what's the first thing we're going to need if we want to recreate a part of the world in Minecraft? I need to know what's on the ground. So for that, we use what's called a land cover map. So this is a standard thing. It's a raster image, so it's just like a bitmap image on your computer. It's usually a grayscale image, where the numbers don't mean it's this color. What the numbers in it are just an enumeration of the land that is under the ground in that pixel. So if you imagine you just took a photo from the sky, and then in each pixel it just says desert, water, forest, or something like that. So this is the Swedish one. Category 1 is forest, and then we've got wetlands, we've got water at the end, and so those are the kind of top-level categories. So like 1 through 6, if you see that in the bitmap, you can get forest or water. And then for water, we've got 61 and 62 will mean lakes and rivers or the sea. This being Sweden, they have a lot of classifications for forest. And the kind of thing, you have to look at the different translation for each one of these maps, because different areas will have different biases in how detailed they get. And so for that, we use what's called a crosswalk table. So this is, in my day job for making that map you saw at the beginning, I'll take a global raster of the world, which is 100 meters per pixel, and it has classifications of all the different habitat types in it. And I'll basically have to go, oh, what have they used, and map that through to what data I have about animals and stuff. So we're going to do the same, but we're just going to map it to Minecraft blocks. The map is at 10 meters per pixel, so every pixel represents a 10 by 10 meter square. And so that's our little island there. And this is my first thing, is I'll just take that image, and for every pixel in it, I'll create 10 by 10 grid in Minecraft, because Minecraft is 1 meter per voxel, I guess. I'm using there are many Python Minecraft map generators. I don't like any of them, but they're there, and someone's put in the effort, so I don't want to knock them too much. So I'm not recommending a particular one, I'm just saying they exist. And so you just pick one and figure out its foibles, and you're just kind of taking your bitmap and doing it. So this is stage 1, right? We know what's on the ground now. The next question is, how can we get it to be more undulating? So for that, we're going to need an elevation map. Terminology used, I find confusing at least. So what we want is a DEM, which is a digital elevation model. It's not even called a map, it's a model. And I think the model refers to the fact that no one went out with a ruler. They kind of generated this map by algorithmically processing other data. But here you can see a height map of the area of interest. The darker areas are lower, so that's the water is the low point here, and you can see the hills kind of as they go. Now this is a DTM, obviously. It's a digital terrain map, which is, it means that the value in each pixel is the height in meters under your feet, as opposed to a DSM, which is digital surface map, which I always think should be the other way around, which is the height you'd see from an airplane. So it includes buildings and trees and things like that. And it means if you've got a DSM and a DTM, you can work out the height of everything on the ground. Does that make sense? So here I want the DTM, and thankfully that's what the Swedish government have in their portal. And it's at 1 meter per pixel, which is brilliant because that's what Minecraft is. Which is kind of good and kind of bad because my other data source is at 10 meters per pixel, and now I've got a bunch of kind of weird glitches where the two maps don't align. So that's it's getting there, but it's not what we want yet. Now we're going to use what's loosely called science, or we could call it engineering because there's no control or anything here. But there are papers on this topic, and therefore we can call it science. So there's a technique called dasymmetric. This sounds like I'm trying to do a bad German accent there. It is called dasymmetric mapping. I don't know how to pronounce it. And where it says if you've got a low-resolution map of the thing you're interested in, and you have a high-resolution map of something else, well, just use that to try and infer more resolution in the first map. And this was originally done for distributing census data, which used to be over broad areas, and how can we map that down to like villages and stuff. But here, we can start to do this. So we've got a high-resolution elevation map, where it's 1 meter per pixel. And we know that all of this area that's kind of uniform is where the water is, right? It's flat. And I know from this map also roughly where the water is. So all I'm going to do, and I'm going to call this science, but it's not that clever, is like everywhere I know there's water, I'm going to work out what the elevation is. And you should, if you plot a histogram, see that most values are the same. That's my water level. So then I can go to the elevation map and just say, give me all the pixels that are at the water height, and I get a very high-resolution water map now. So I've used my low-resolution map to infer something from the high-resolution map, and lets me get more detail. You're not meant to understand this Python code, other than it's not really that much to do this, right? I say it. Don't tell my bosses about this. This is what I'm paid for. If they ask, it's a lot of code. What are we doing? I'm just trying to, so what I ended up doing is erasing the water, taking the water out of the 10-meter map and replacing it with this one. And then I go from this to this, where the outline of the islands is now better. You can see I've got things wrong. I've lost some water here. That's because the elevation maps are taken by a plane that flies back and forth. And this is actually a reservoir, and so the water level was slightly different between the passes. So there's a lot of little fudges you have to apply, but hopefully you get the rough idea. There's a lot of taking other data sources to refine your thing. The other thing that some of you might notice is the roads went away. And that's because the roads at 10 meter per pixel are somewhat crude. And you can see in the elevation map where the road should be, which is nice. But I can't do the same trick here because roads go up and down a lot more than lakes do. But we do the same thing, like what other data is out there that tells me where the road should be? And so for that, we just use OpenStreetMap. And it turns out that in Python, I had not come across this before, this OSM-NX library. Like in that amount of code, I had all of the roads for the bit of Sweden I was interested in. It was like really easy. The one gotcha with OpenStreetMap data, that is kind of if you're doing this, is that it stores roads as a line with no width. So everything is just a fixed line. And so somewhere in the middle of this, I'm just doing a hack, because OSM does say it's a highway or a road or a footpath. And so I'm just going, if it's a road, it's probably about 10 meters wide, something like that. And if it's a path, it's probably a couple of meters wide. So I'm kind of bodging it. But it gives me something that's much more convincing than that crude 10-meter map I had originally. So here's back to our original land cover map. And now I've got much better roads, and I've got much better water edges, mostly. And that's kind of the science kind of way. It's like, what else is out there that I can pull together to refine this? The last example I'm going to give you is trees. There's a lot of trees in this area. So if I want this Minecraft map to be remotely realistic, I need forests. So originally, the land cover map, these greens, I think that's like birch forest. The darker one is pine forest. Oh no, spruce rather, and the darker one is birch. And so I get some kind of clue of what trees should be where. And so that's fine. Minecraft has spruce and pine and birch trees, and so I can generate the correct type of tree. But I can take a guess at their distribution and their height from Wikipedia data, like, you know, what's the average height of a spruce tree. But we can do better. We can do better. So for that, I'm going to use LiDAR data. So LiDAR data is a plane flew over, fired a laser at the ground, and caught the reflections. That's how LiDAR works. I think it's magic, personally. I think. And the fun thing is, because trees aren't a solid blob, you'll often get reflections from the ground underneath the trees and from the canopies and stuff. It's really quite detailed. It's quite. I can spend hours just pouring through LiDAR maps. And if you go, I'll put that somewhere online. This map is interactive on that website, and you can spin it around and zoom in if you want to explore more. But this gives me my DSM. Remember the surface map, which gives me the top of everything. Oh yeah, here's an example of the detail that's in the LiDAR data. Like, you could see the power lines. You could see how they sag. You could see the stanchions, right? This is amazing stuff. At least I think so. But I want trees. I want trees. So I turn to science again. This time I turn to my colleagues, because I've not had to do this myself. So there's a data science scripting language called R, which is very popular. And it turns out someone has solved this problem for us. So if you have LiDAR data, you can pass it to this R package called LiDAR. I hope you all see what they did there. And it will guess where the trees are. And so it's, again, literally these 6, 7 lines of code are all I had to do once my ecology colleague told me what to run. The documentation for LiDAR is awesome. Not only does it tell you how to use it, it tells you what it's doing and the kind of science behind it. So a huge shout out to the authors of that. But I'm just reading in my LiDAR data. I read in my DTM, and then I normalize, which means I just get the height of everything above ground rather than the height kind of from the center of the Earth. Or from sea level, I guess, actually. We turn that into a bitmap, which is basically turning the LiDAR data into our DSM, and then I call locate trees. They made it very easy for me. And there's I'm using 2 different algorithms here. The red and the green dots are different tree heights, different estimates of where the trees might be. There's different algorithms, and it depends on what kind of tree you're looking at, and so there's a bit of fiddling and finagling here. And sometimes it gets it wrong and decides that the trees go across the lake. There's no power lines or anything there. It's just literally a glitch in the matrix. But it does a very good job, and much better than just putting down trees randomly, which is what originally I did. And so you can kind of see that I kind of missold you all. I said I was going to use science, and all I've done is take different bits of data that I found kicking around the internet, and I wrote a lot of small scripts where I just said, how can I use this one to make that one better? And slowly built up a more and more accurate version, allowing for the fact it's in Minecraft, so it's never going to be really accurate, a version of the world. So let's have a look. How did we do? This is one of the more iconic camera photos from Den Straat Uitwanderingen. It's this tree. It's fallen over. He was in the LiDAR data. And if you look at the kind of undulating tree line at the back, kind of see it? It's like, how cool's that? It's just like, we have all of this data that's hidden in these data portals that tells us so much about the world around us. If only we could view it properly, right? So that I found quite amazing. This is low resolution screenshot apparently. This is one of the other cameras that's kind of, the Meese kind of walk across this as they're going into the peninsula. There it is in Minecraft. Again, like, I've not fudged any of this, it's just running some scripts on publicly available data. And there's my power lines again, because I do love my power lines. I just find it amazing that you can just see so visually such a small thing in the data. On the road, I like this. This is maybe slightly nerdy, as opposed to the rest of the talk. So what you got here is the road is kind of sloping slightly away from us. And you can see this kind of circular shape kind of in there. That's macadamization. Roads aren't flat. They fall away to the sides. As you're kind of forcing the road to be 1 meter or another, the edges will go down step before the middle does. And so what you're seeing here is the fact that the roads are rounded. And it's because although the elevation map is 1 meter per pixel, only in X and Y it's down to centimeters, which I hadn't realized when I downloaded it. You get much more resolution in that data, which again, just lovely to explore. And this is a power station, right? You can tell this. This is the end of those power lines, because I had to go and look at what was at the end of the power. In the end, I rendered like 12.5 by 12.5 kilometers. And like I said, that's a reservoir rather than a river, so I wanted to see what was at the end of the power lines. This should all be, bits of metal holding wires and connecting them to things. But I didn't check what this area was. I just let the tree algorithm run over all of the LiDAR data, and it didn't know it was a power station. So it was, yeah, that looks like a tree. All of these little sticks in the ground, yeah, those are clearly trees. For the power lines, I actually went into the OSM data and found the power lines and said, don't put trees anywhere near power lines. But I didn't do that. And I guess I just offer this up an example. It's not perfect, right? And there'll always be corner cases with this method that you don't catch. You can find another data set that says where the power stations are or where the buildings are. But you'll never get it all perfect. But it's fit for purpose. Right. And so what? This was fun. But why? The first time I walked into this map, like in its crude version where I just added random trees and you had the terrible water clipping and stuff. Within a few minutes of walking around in Minecraft, I knew why the moose swim here and not there. It's so obvious. The distances make more sense because on the television, a zoom lens makes all distances look the same, which is kind of great, but also kind of annoying. Like, I understood why the moose vanished for so long. It's very large, which is, again, the zoom lenses on the telly make everything seem small. But having walked around and had to walk from one end of the island to the other, it takes quite a while. Even if this was just for me, I suddenly understood so much more about the area than I had from the television. Now, that's fine. Kind of what I would like to do is then, like, can we use this sense of immersion and being in that world, even for its crude nature? Like, we make these maps of forest loss, and they're just like, there's some pixels here, and then there's no pixels here. What if I put a class of students in a map and let them play for 20 minutes? They can build things and have fun, and then I take the forests away, right? Maybe that will help communicate the devastation that's happening. Or, again, sorry, meant to be happy, a rewilding project. You can take a devastated area and show actually what the impact, just a small investment of, say, supporting farmers in that area will do, right? And it's just like, how do you take these pretty but uninformative pictures out of the computer and make them more immersive? That's so. If any of this you want to learn more, I kind of write week notes as I go along. I'll put some of this online. Or ask me questions. But yeah, I feel it was a success personally, and we gave this to the chat on the Great Moose Migration, and they seem to enjoy running around and pretending to be me. So that's success. That's my talk. Thank you very much.
That was excellent. There's a question over here already. Brilliant. We've got just a couple of minutes for questions, so let's do these.
Hi. I was wondering, have you tried running around the map in VR?
Apologies, can you say again?
Have you tried running the Minecraft VR using that map?
No, I have not. I've not. That would be like some of this spun out of like you've got these super high resolution Apple Vision Pro things, but just like very few people have access to them. And I think it would be wonderful to do that. I think there's also then how can I hit the biggest audience with this, which is why I kind of went this way. But yeah, anything where you can just get people to feel that sense of immersion, I think is a good thing. Oh.
Coming.
Okay. Have you tried adding shaders?
No, I haven't tried running it with any of the shader stuff. It would be interesting to see, again, how much more you feel like you're really in the forest with that. Is that what you were thinking? Yeah. No, I haven't tried that. That would be a great thing to do. What I will do is at some point I can also share the server. So if you have shaders on your Minecraft, you can try it out for me and let me know what it's like. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the start of the talk, so I've already covered this, but it was just about software that you use to make it available, or...
Yes, sorry, and I totally filtered it. Hopefully at some point there'll be links in there. If not, I will tweet about it and find it. Yeah, it's all under my GitHub, very poorly documented, and it's lots of small fragments of code that I got working about a week ago. So, but that's no defense for not documenting it. I should have done better there. But yes,
nothing like a deadline to focus the mind.
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Fantastic talk. Thanks.